Hello, everybody. It's George from Ireland. Welcome back to me, unspun as usual, unprepared. I'm commenting on Donald J. Trump's address to Congress, and it was in his trademark bombastic style. He would think it's sort of a taking no prisoners style, but it shows his infantile impetuosity, his petulance, his rampant dishonesty, as per usual. I've come to expect no better from him, and of course his clack in the Republican ranks, applauding almost as every word, a few standing ovations. These used to be occasions of considerable decorum. That dignity was entirely lacking at this time. Up until Barack Obama's time, these were listened to courteously, even by the opponents of the president. And when Barack Obama made some uncontentious statement, this is around about 2009, a Republican politician, I forget who, shouted out, "You lie!" And there was much murmuring and disapprobation of that. But this has now become absolutely standard. And then I think it was Joe Biden was interrupted several times by the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene and who's it? Boebert, is it Lauren Boebert? Is she a congresswoman from Arizona? One of those Sun Belt states, standing up and lambasting him several times. So wow, is very low. Now the Democrats have riposted, and I've got to be fair to the Democratic Party, and I despise them, but it was the Republicans who started this, so they're just giving what they got. Would it were that the two parties in the United States could return to that level of maturity and common decency that pertained not even 20 years ago. So Donald Trump gave, methinks, the longest ever such address to Congress, 43 days into his presidency, so just 6 weeks and 1 day, and he claims to have achieved more than any presidency has in 8 years. So that's just typical Republican lies, or particularly Trumpist lies. And he signed some documentation, but we don't know if these executive orders are feasible or even lawful. And then he claims to arrogate to himself the right to interpret the law that it's not for the courts. Well, he obviously hasn't attended the very first lecture in constitutional law. And what a sad contrast that is to Barack Obama, who was indeed a professor of constitutional law. Trump is not known for his constitutionality, known for his flagrant criminality. I would expect no better with a convicted felon in the Oval Office. And that's why he does indeed behave like a gangster. So he said he's achieved an awful lot, that border crossings are down. I mean, rather too early to take a reading on that one. He's freezed foreign aid. And all right, from his ideological perspective, that's a step forward. Anyway, that he's pulled out of international organizations and agreements. And if you're an isolationist, as he sometimes is, that appears to be it. And he says he's forbidding transgender athletes in women's sports. Now, that is a step forward, but this is possibly material for another video. Why do we have separate categories for women and men? We know because women, in the great majority of cases, are smaller, less muscle mass, slightly different skeletons, slightly pelvises and so on, affected by pregnancy, menstruation, menopause, all of which will have an impact on athletic performance. Otherwise, we could simply abolish categories and have men and women together and let the best win. And I can guess which sex is going to win 9 times out of 10. So there he's actually doing something for women's rights, but I don't think the feminists are going to give him any credit for that one. And I know he has been appalling to women and sexually abused one, as was proven in court before, and very likely committed more than a few rapes. Anyway, so he's coming for wokeness, so I'm anti-woke, so I sometimes agree with him on this one. But he derided Joe Biden as a radical left lunatic. Now, I abominate Joe Biden, but that's just not fair to call him that. Anyway, he lied many, many times. Anyway, and then he liked to use his epithets for previous nemesis of his, like Senator Elizabeth Warren, who was seen as a possible Democratic nominee for the presidency, scorning her as Pocahontas because she put herself down as a minority hire for some professorial post on the basis that she's got some Native American ancestry. Pocahontas, in case you don't know, is the 17th century Native American woman. She married, was it James Smith? Was that his name? That English immigrant to Virginia, narrowly saved him from death. Married him, blah, 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 came to London and died in the early 17th century. My boy George looking fine. Thank you, Pup Barn. I'll take that as a cordial compliment. Anyway, so he harangued his auditors. Um, and the Speaker of the House, he had to bring down his gavel sometimes and calls for some order. And indeed, the Sergeant at Arms had to eject a Democrat from Texas, Al Green, who was continually disrupting President Trump's oration. So Trump is no Cicerone. So he's a vulgarian. I remember before he won the presidency, Bill Maher did a skit pretending to be Trump, imagining how obloquy it would be if Donald J. Trump actually was president of the United States. How would he address Congress? And the way Ma did it, well, really, Trump's beyond parody. It was, almost pitch perfect for that level of foulness. And so it went on. So he spoke for an hour and 40 minutes, which is a record in itself. But, as my good friend Will Shakespeare would say, brevity is the soul of wit. So there was a lot of playing to the gallery. Anyway, so he's achieved so much. It's all good news if border crossings are down. But of course, the sky high egg prices, that's to be blamed on Joe Robinette Biden. We haven't had a peep out of President Biden since he retired. So Trump saying he'd rescue the economy. Well, he almost wrecked the economy first time. It actually got much better under Biden, despite having to come out of coronavirus. So the United States has done quite well under things like NAFTA, healthy economic growth. There was fairly low inflation, low unemployment. Stock market was doing fine. Anyway, so he name checked Elon Musk, the Canadian South African American billionaire, has it $440 trillion by some reckoning, more wealth than about two-thirds of Africa combined. Sickening. Anyway, so much for avarice. But the Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, who's going to eviscerate many government departments, so cut out a lot of profligacy and fraudulence. And so there really was some shocking waste that they're cutting out, but they're cutting into muscle and not just fat. So he wants to protect the soul of the American country. One thing that Trump said that I did applaud, saying that every child, you're born just fine. You don't feel that you're in the wrong body. If you're a girl, be happy with that. If you're a boy, be happy with that. And no more mutilation of children's genitals. So step forward. If you're an adult and you want gender reassignment, that might be a different thing. But there's obviously those pushing this transgender ideology. You've got a vested economic interest in doing this sort of thing. Anyway, but so much for the economy growing. Trump's madcap trade war has played havoc with the stock market in recent days. And even he said that this tax on imported goods from the People's Republic of China, Mexico, and Canada is causing disturbance, and farmers are going to feel a period of indigestion. So I think that's only just beginning. And so it goes on. So Trump says he's going to balance the budget. Well, ha ha ha. You see how the deficit went sky high under him, cutting taxes for the super rich and spending like crazy. And then all these daft schemes, which would be eye-wateringly expensive and probably yield no benefit, like colonizing Mars. Let's concentrate on planet one, yeah, and not poison it, so that the species is all wiped out and so on. So the budget deficit is now $2 trillion. Anyway, these tax cuts. Anyway, he said there'll be no taxes on tips, overtime, or social security. But it looks like they're going to gut a lot of these social security programs. He came up with his criminal plan to steal Denmark, to steal the Panama Canal. Now he only mentioned Gaza, I think, briefly. So peace for Ukraine. He's talking about that. Well, really, it would be a liquidator's audit, because if you deprive the Ukrainians of the means with which to defend themselves, it's just going to be capitulation. Like it's going to be a negotiated surrender more than an actual negotiation. No, the silence of a graveyard is not peace. So peace would be the absence of oppression, not just the absence of violence. My goodness. Anyway, so it's depressing, it's sickening, and it's really set the tone for what's to come. But apparently Trump's ratings have gone really badly down. Now I know he can't stand for the third presidency. I know he'll try to say, well, I can because Biden cheated the second time. Lie. And this speech contained as many lies as usual, which the Republicans can get away with. Many of them are religious wingnuts who are oh so moral. Well, lying lips are an abomination to the Lord. That's what the good book saith. But somehow you can tell blatant lies non-stop in public as president, and that's okay. That's no abomination. Well, he's an abominator of the Bible on which he swore his presidential oath. Anyhow, I think the Democrats will probably do quite well in the midterms. I know it's yet a long way off, but he's doing a lot wrong, Trump. And one thing about alienating these European allies or Canada and so on is one day you might need them. They won't necessarily come back. Right. Thank you for watching my channel. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon, donate on PayPal, georgecallahan79@gmail.com. Toodle pip.